Hello friends, welcome to Extreme Excel Solutions. In this video we are going to show you an example where we will be listing down the details of all the files in one folder, and those files we are not talking only in specific to that folder, we are talking about files within the subfolders also. So for instance, if I take an example, I have specified a folder name over here. If I take you to the folder and if I show you the contents, you can see that inside this folder there are many subfolders. So if I open it here, yeah, so this folder is having 4 subfolders. There are no files in it, but if I open the subfolder, so it is having few files and few subfolders again, and if I further dig down you will see a lot of files here. So we need a algorithm or a logic which will navigate through all the folders and subfolders and list down the details like file name, file path, the size of file, type of file, when it was created and when it was modified. If you see here, if I run this, I can see here the count is increasing on the address bar, not the address but the status bar, and if I scroll down you can see we have all the files, we have details of all the files here. Now we need to create this whole thing from scratch. So what I do is I'm going to VBA editor, and since the code that we have written was in module 1, since we are writing it from scratch, so I'm using module 2. So first thing that you need to do is you need to add a reference of Microsoft scripting runtime in your libraries that you are using, because you will be using your file system object for accessing files and folders, so you need to include that reference. So now let's say you create a sub procedure named as test, or you can say get file details. Right, so I'm creating two objects, I'm just declaring them. So dim, one object I'm creating for file and one for the folder. So obj file as, now it is important to know the type of the data type of files. So the data type of files is scripting dot file, and for folder you need to use scripting dot folder. So this is part of the library that we have included, dot file for file. And similarly, if I declare an object for folder, so scripting dot folder. Now when we are initializing these two objects, we will see how to use them. So we have declared the type as of now. So let's say I want to iterate through all the files first of all. So all the files inside the folder. So for that we can use for each loop. So for each, now for each file, and for that file I'm using this object reference, because when it will be iterating through all the files it will be saving one particular file at a time in this object. So that's why we have created this object. And which files we are talking about? We are talking about all the files inside the folder. So that folder is nothing but obj folder dot files. So all the files inside that folder, but we have not yet defined what this obj folder is. Now to define this obj folder, what you need to do is you need to first of all initialize this. So for initialization you can do set obj folder equals, now to initialize it you need to have an object of file system. So for that we need to create a file system object also. For the time being I am commenting this part, and here I am creating a file system object. So what you can do is dim obj fso for file system object as scripting dot file system object, right? So now you have this file system object declaration. Now you need to initialize this file system object. So set obj fso equals, you need to create an instance of it. So create object. Which object you want to create? You want to create a file system object. So it is in the reference scripting runtime. So scripting dot file system object. Okay, so we have initialized a file system object. Now we need to initialize the folder which we are talking about. Now folder is nothing but, you can refer a folder using this file system object. You can say that from the file system I want to fetch a folder. To fetch a folder you have a function name as getFolder, and if you see the argument, it has an argument folder path as string. Now nothing is left, you just need to pass on the folder path here as string. So what is happening here, when I specify a path, for example if I copy any folder's path, let's say I use the same example that I have used here. So I copy this complete path and I paste it over here in double quotes. Okay, so what has happened, so I have created a file system object. So that's how I can use files and folders in my scripting. Alright, so after creating this file system object, I have referred that from that file system object I want to access a folder, and which folder I have specified that in the form of string, the path. The whole thing is going to return me an object, and that object would be nothing but of folder type. So that's why I have kept a container ready which was a folder type, obj folder. You can see here I have initialized it as scripting.folder. Now we are onto that folder, and the next thing is we need to access the files of that folder, right? So the third thing that we have declared was file. So therefore I am iterating through all the files of the folder, obj folder, right? And at a time I am holding every file in this object which we have declared here. So what we need to do is, when it is iterating through all the files, we need to save the details somewhere. Okay, what we can do is just display in message box file name. Okay, so the name of object is obj file dot, you can see the attributes here. We have date created, we have date accessed, we have date modified, we have drive name, we have path, we have parent folder, short name, short path, size and type. So all this information we can fetch. Let's say I access the name, right? So I'm displaying in the message box the name of the file. So since this folder is not having any of the files, let us check first of all. So the folder is not having any files, so let us move somewhere else. I go here inside, let's say Bluetooth. Okay, I refer the path of Bluetooth. It is having 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 files and 2 subfolders. So right now we are talking only about the files, so I specify the complete path here. Alright, so let us see what happens now. So when it comes here, the declarations are over, then it created an object of file system, then the folder. Now it is iterating through all the files inside that folder. First file, we have the name here in the message box. Then it goes to the second file, we have the name, third file, and then the fourth file, and then the fifth file. And once the five files are done, it will move out of the loop. So that's how we can use this thing. Now the point is, how do we write it in the Excel? We need to write this information in the last available row. For example, if I keep on writing, I need to check which row is the next row where I want to enter that information. So for that I am creating another variable, next row, and it is very important to declare the variables which you are using. I am declaring this as long because I keep on writing till the end of the Excel file. So since I'm declaring all the variables I'm using option explicit. So it makes it mandatory that you declare all the variables which you use. Right, so next row. What is next row now? Because we are going to write something in the next row. So I here mention that next row is nothing, but it is the last available row of the cell. So cells rows dot count, comma, in first column do what, from the last cell of the first column, I mean to say I'm talking about this cell, just move upside and see what is the row where it can move up to and add 1 to it. Alright, so dot end excel up, right, dot row plus 1. Okay, what it actually did, it simply reached to this cell. So cells rows dot count dot 1, rows dot count is 1048576, and cells 1048576 comma 1, that means I'm talking about this cell. Then I am saying that move in up direction till end. So if I hit control end from here, I reach to cell A5, but that is not the right cell where I need to write. I need to write in the next cell. So therefore I am adding 1 to it. So that is the next available row where I want to write something. Alright, so let's say I want to write something here, cells. Now next row is the variable and the column is, let's say, 1, which is holding the name. Similarly, I can use other information, like if I want full path, I can say dot path. If I want to print, what is the third variable? Third is size and then type and then created and modified. So dot size is for third, and then also we need to update the column numbers 1, 2, 3 and 4. The fourth one is type, right, and the fifth one is date created, and the sixth one is date modified. So dot date created, and the sixth one is dot date modified. Right, so here we are done with this. Now after this it should move to the next file, or we can also write next obj file. Alright, so see what happens now. The problem is we have find out the next available row here outside the for loop, but then we are not doing anything, we are not incrementing it. That's why it is overwriting the previous values. So next row is nothing but the previous value plus 1. Alright, so let's see what happens now. If I clear the previous data, if I run it now, it is listed down all the files of one folder. As of now, we have not yet sorted out how to go inside every folder, every subfolder, and then list down all the files. Right, so for that, what you need to do is you need to call this function over and again, and you need to iterate through all the folders itself. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm creating another main procedure, you can say list files, list all the files. Okay, and in this I will be calling this function, right, and let's say I'm passing on this folder from the parent, so I can initialize it over here, and if I'm initializing it there, so I can declare it over there. So if I cut it down and if I paste it over here, so obj folder, so we have a folder here, this is the folder that I'm passing, right, where we need to I'm now passing the folder as object. So this function or sub procedure, I'm calling it as function. So this function is accepting a folder as scripting dot folder, right. So now this object folder is here. We have called this function from here, and this function received that folder, and on that folder we are performing operations, right? There is one more thing. We are initializing file system over here. It is not required over there, it is required here, right? So file system object folder, file system object definition, folder definition, and we are passing that folder here to this function. Now the function is here. It has a file, it has the next row variable, it is iterating through all the files in that folder and then fetching information. Now the point is, how do we iterate through all the folders, all the subfolders? So for that we need to have another variable, obj subfolder. Now subfolder is nothing but a folder, so we are using it is of data type scripting dot folder. Okay, so now what need to be done? Now once it listed down all the files of a folder, it need to iterate through all the folders also, all the subfolders. So for each obj subfolder in obj folder, that is the parent folder, dot folders, or you can say dot subfolders. So this way we can iterate through all the folders also. Now what you need to do when you are inside a folder, you need to follow the same function, you need to call the same function again. You need to first list down all the files, and then you need to check if there are any subfolders inside that subfolder or not. Alright, so this is the case of recursion. We need to call this function over and again until it reaches to the last level. Okay, so this concept is known as recursion, where you're calling a function over and again, one inside other. You're calling the same function inside itself. And here you need to pass on the folder. Here actually the folder where you want to perform the operation is the subfolder, so you're passing the subfolder as a folder here, right? So actual printing is happening here. You have called the function. Let us quickly review if we have done all the things or not. We have almost done everything, right? Let's run it. Let's see what happens when I run this function. Okay, so let us first clear everything. We'll write a line of code here on the top which will clear the data also. So let's see what happens when I run this. There is some type mismatch. It says that obj folder, it's of type folder, get file details. Get file details is expecting input to be a folder. So what is wrong? It's something wrong here. Again you need to use call. Let's see. So it go inside, it is printing the information. Let's run it. Now we have all the files, right? So the code is simple. If you again have a quick look, what we have done is we have a main function, we have defined file system object, we have defined folder, and we have passed on the parent folder. We have called the function which will list down all the files of that folder, parent folder first, and then iterate through all the subfolders. Now this I converted this sub procedure into a function because I wanted to call this function over and again through recursion, so that I can list down all the files of the subfolders also. So it will first perform this operation, which will be listing down all the details of the files in that folder, and then it will iterate through all the subfolders of the folder. And here I am calling that subfolder to fetch the details of the subfolder. And that's all how we can fetch information of the files. So if you have any queries in that, if you have any doubts in this in this algorithm, feel free to write to me at excel.microk@gmail.com, or you may also call me at 9650740760. Keep watching our videos, and I want to see a lot of hits and likes on this video. So keep following and also subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Have a nice day.